Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Rod Milam.
As they've said, borrowing their words, this has been one of the most successful launches of a new market that they've had in recent memory.
Sister Cities International is an organization formed in 1956. The stated goal for the group is to create a global relationship based on cultural, educational, information, and trade exchanges. St. Louis has 16 sister city relationships. The oldest was formed more than 6 decades ago with Stuttgart, Germany, and the most recent relationship, formed less than a decade ago, is with Rosario, Argentina. Other sister city relationships span most of the other continents around the world, including cities in Mexico, China, Japan, and Indonesia. In a moment, we'll talk with the St. Louisans who steer the sister city relationships in Argentina and Senegal. But here with me now is Tim Nowak. He's the executive director of the World Trade Center in St. Louis, which is the umbrella organization for all of St. Louis's sister city relationships. Welcome very much to the show.
Hey, thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Glad that you're here with us. So, what to you is the purpose of the sister city relationships?
Well, I liked how you gave a little bit of the background, and President Eisenhower did really start the Sister Cities International program back in 1956 as a part of this citizen diplomacy summit. And his thinking, and many others at the time, was, hey, let's spend some time getting to know each other, appreciate each other's differences, better understand foreign cultures. And the more that we do understand one another, the more time that we spend, building relationships, building partnerships, this really is an opportunity to lessen the likelihood of future conflicts. So that goes all the way back to the beginning, and it still remains true today. In St. Louis, our citizens, our leaders, the more time that we spend building these important global relationships, the better we are able to understand and appreciate foreign cultures, but we're also able to promote our own city, to promote our own culture, to take a little bit about what makes St. Louis special and share that with foreign partners. And, so I think going back all the way back to 1956, that still remains true today. It's evolved. It sure has evolved. You and I were talking even before the start of the program and what technology has meant to these relationships and how we've leveraged, what even just 4 or 5 years ago, thinking about video conferencing and Zoom and what that's all brought to it. But at its core, it still is about people-to-people relationships, relationship building. And so, for us, it's an important part of what we do. At the World Trade Center, we are the international office for the Economic Development Agency, and we're always very obviously interested in trade and investment, helping companies here sell our products all throughout the globe, helping to support foreign investment in the community. But we need to be promoting St. Louis on an international scale. And these relationships really do play an important role in that.
Okay. But I understand this seems like it was something that was born post-World War II to make sure that these relationships are strong, to provide probably a peaceful sort of relationship between different cities, different cultures, and everything else. How does the relationship as it's set up with the 16 different cities work? Are there different committees? Are there people in charge of each city relationship? How does that work?
Yeah, so the World Trade Center is the umbrella organization for the 16 sister cities that we do have. But each one, as you'll learn from my colleagues here, Renee and Maria, each one is its own committee. So it's a committee of dedicated volunteers here in St. Louis, each one with a unique sort of flavor and culture of their own, with strong interests in that particular relationship, whether it's in somewhere in Europe or Africa or Latin America. We help to provide that connection to Sister Cities International, but each one of these committees really operates independently and through their own sort of support and volunteering and connections and communication with their partner internationally.
So since you've already mentioned the two other people in the studio with us, let's go ahead and introduce them. We have two committee members from two of the sister cities. We have Maria de Gregorio. She's the chair of the St. Louis Rosario, Argentina Sister Cities Committee, and she's also the business counselor with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Metropolitan St. Louis. Maria, welcome and bienvenidos.
Hi, thank you.
And we also have Renee Brummel-Franklin, who is chair of the St. Louis-San Luis Senegal Sister Cities Committee, and she's also the chief diversity officer with the Art Museum here in St. Louis. Renee, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Rod.
Okay. And Renee, I'm going to start with you since the origin of the town that you represent, Saint Louis in Senegal, and St. Louis are the same. And you, in your day job, work at the St. Louis Art Museum, which actually has the statue of St. Louis, the French King Louis IX. So let's go ahead and start off with you. Can you tell me about the establishment of the sister city relationship with Saint Louis in Senegal?
Okay. Again, thank you so much for having us here. The formation of San Luis, Missouri, San Luis, Senegal sister cities really began before I was involved. It actually has its start in 1994. So I'm thrilled to say that in 2024 we will celebrate 30 years. And the reason it was started, or its impetus, was a group of businessmen wrote to the ambassador in Washington as well as the mayor of St. Louis and said that we would like to form a sister city. So it was actually Senegal who came to us. But then once we found out that they wanted to have a sister city, a group a group went to St. Louis, Senegal, led by Dr. John Wright, is what I was going to say, went to St. Louis, looked at the city, and the city of St. Louis, Senegal is so similar to St. Louis, Missouri.
How so?
There's a bridge as you go into their city, just like in St. Louis. The population is smaller. It's about 100,000 people, but many of its activities have to do with the water. It has to do with boating. So there are similarities. And so when the group went to St. Louis, and at the time Dr. John Wright was very involved with education, and so it was an opportunity to really look at the school systems in both places. And then the actual formal agreement is between the two mayors, the mayor of St. Louis, Missouri, and the San Luis, Senegal. So then the actual commitment letter was signed in 1994.
So during your tenure as head of the committee, what are some of the interchanges that have happened between the city of St. Louis in Missouri and Saint Louis in Senegal?
Well, I'm going to take one step back in that Dr. John Wright was the president at the time. And then I actually am co-president, so I want to give a shout out to Clavon Wesley, who is my co-president. But since then, there are several activities that we've continued. We've continued to have a very strong relationship with the schools. One was a girls' school. And then we also have a relationship with the primary school. And by relationship, I mean that we give supplies, we help to maintain the premises of the schools. We've had teachers come here and teachers go there in exchanges. We've had students do exchanges. So that's probably one of our oldest programs. We also have an eyeglass program in which we collect eyeglasses here. I get a new pair of glasses every year. People in St. Louis, buying a pair of eyeglasses can be a financial commitment that they may not have. So we work with doctors there, and we provide glasses to children and adults who may not otherwise have the means to have corrective eyewear. So we do art exchanges. Of course, I work at an art museum, so we've done art exchanges between both cities. And during the pandemic, we actually had masks made. San Luis, Senegal, overall, Dakar is very much known for its tailors, its fashion, but with no tourism, we wanted to support the tailors. And so we had fabric masks made and sent to St. Louis. So that's just a few of the projects that we've done over the years.
That's really interesting. And again, you've had a little bit more of a time to establish that relationship with it going all the way back to 1994. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But let's go to our newest relationship. And Maria, let's head to you with Rosario in Argentina. You're the newest sister city of St. Louis, and that relationship started just before the pandemic back in 2017. How did that start, and where are we right now?
Yes, thank you for having me here. Yeah, it all started in 2017, as you said, with a delegation of companies, universities, and organizations from St. Louis who traveled to Rosario and to Buenos Aires. And they were involved there in that delegation, representative from very well-known companies like Bunge and today's Bayer, but used to be Monsanto at that time, which are Argentinian-based companies that have a very strong presence here in St. Louis. And as a result of the visit, there was the Sister Cities Agreement that was signed. And by the visit, they discovered the similarities of both cities. Both cities, Rosario and St. Louis, are port cities, and they would like to become ag-tech hubs for the region. So being port cities means that the majority of the agriculture production from both countries is being collected by barge or railway system to be exported in the case of Rosario, or distributed to other areas in the case of St. Louis. So related to that strong similarity of being involved with the agriculture sector is that the whole relationship started being more focused on ag-tech companies and the relationship among between the two cities with this type of companies.
And has a relationship, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting time for everyone with the pandemic hitting. Is there anything in particular that has happened since the pandemic started back in 2020 that you've done to kind of bridge the gap and also strengthen the relationship between the two cities?
Yes, correct. Of course, the idea was that it all started with the trade mission to Rosario, and the idea was to have companies and organizations from Rosario coming to St. Louis, but because of the pandemic, that was unfeasible. So with the collaboration of the World Trade Center, we organized a virtual trade mission to St. Louis. It was focused on ag-tech companies again, because we see the synergy between those that area. And we have more than 30 companies from Rosario interested in participating. It was a very successful 2-day full of Zooms, meetings, but very, very rich. The conversation was really interesting, and companies in Rosario gather more information about the resources available and opportunities available in St. Louis, what the city has to offer. And as a result of that successful virtual trade mission, last year we did, in collaboration with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Metropolitan St. Louis, a soft landing in St. Louis program, which was a 9-month webinar series in Spanish, where we offer information and resources for companies who were interested to come into St. Louis, what they need to take into account, starting from visa options, how to register their business, what the banking system looks like here, taxes, insurance, how to hire employees, you name it, everything that a company needs to take into account in order to move to St. Louis. And the success of that webinar series was really impressive. We have a lot of companies, again, more focused on ag-tech, because that's where they see the opportunity.
Well,
so there are still more things to be done. I mean, virtually, as Tim was mentioning before, but also now, hopefully, in person, so we can get more interactions in person with St. Louis and Rosario.
Well, we'll talk more about the relationships that we have with Sister Cities International, but we need to take a break right quick, and we'll continue this conversation. I'm Rod Milam, and you're listening right now to St. Louis on the Air here on St. Louis Public Radio. Now back to our conversation about the sister cities of St. Louis. Tim, I'd like to ask you first. Now, Sister Cities International at its core is a cultural relationship and really not an economic one. But from time to time, there are economic benefits that come out of that particular relationship that the two different cities have. Can you give an example of something like that?
Well, the relationship as it started with Rosario, just looking back at our most recent, talking about the delegation we led down there. There was a strong ag tech focus in the group that we took. When we were there, the Yield Lab, which is an ag tech accelerator based here in St. Louis with global reach, they launched their latest accelerator for Latin America, and it's headquartered out of Rosario, Argentina. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it really helps for not only in terms of investing in some of these newer technologies that are born out of Argentina that are looking at, a global presence, as they're looking at the largest market in the world, North America. Having this connection, having that relationship, having the Yield Lab be that bridge, if you will, really helps for these companies to understand why wouldn't you want to be based out of St. Louis, where we have this global proposition, where we have this value proposition, this leadership in ag technology. And so, that's provided an opportunity for us to showcase St. Louis for a number of these companies that are looking at North America. Maria had mentioned that.
And what about the oldest relationship in this whole thing that we have with the Sister Cities International? I think it started in 1960 with Stuttgart, Germany. I know that we have a direct flight with Lufthansa between here and Frankfurt. So.
You stole my thunder. I was just about to mention that as well. We launched for the first time in 20 years direct flights between St. Louis and Frankfurt, Germany last year. June 1 was the launch of that. We took a delegation on that first flight. We made a stop while we were there, took our entire delegation down to Stuttgart. That flight, obviously, the tremendous amount of German investment in St. Louis helps to contribute to that. But I like to think also the long-standing relationships led by Suzanne Evans and the St. Louis Stuttgart Sister City Committee here, the great work that they've done now for so many years in bridging St. Louis and German relationships has helped to make this an easier investment choice for German companies. And certainly when they're bringing management over here, the understanding and the connectivity that we've had with Germany for so long contributes to this. And I'm happy to share with you that this flight has been a tremendous success, far exceeding the expectations that Lufthansa even had going into this. Mm-hmm. As they've said, borrowing their words, this has been one of the most successful launches of a new market that they've had in recent memory. So we're thrilled with this. We're thrilled to have direct flights now going back to Europe. We want to continue to build on this and to see this success continue. But make no mistake, when Lufthansa executives came here last a year and a half ago to make this announcement, one of the first groups that we met with, we took to lunch with the St. Louis Stuttgart Sister City leadership to talk about the importance of this and the long-standing relationships we've had with Germany.
So I understand we have that long-term relationship with Stuttgart, with it being the longest relationship with the sister cities. But there are other cities that we have relationships with via that organization, like in Wuhan in China and Samara in Russia. There's been some discussion, should we have that relationship? It's not quite as active as it once was because of political situations. Why do you maintain these relationships, and do you think they can be stronger in the future?
Yeah, that question did come to us when Ukraine was invaded. And we went to, and Sister Cities International, we asked for their perspective. They have put out publicly strongly encouraging cities to maintain these relationships. I know there's been a few other cities around the United States that have either paused or canceled their sister city relationship with Russia. We've encouraged our community and our leadership to not do that. Mm-hmm. This entire program, as you and I talked about early on, was started under the theory of citizen diplomacy. This is taking politics out of it. And so I think that the mission remains the same. We need to better understand each other, better understand one another's cultures, and that doesn't come from canceling relationships. That comes from sticking through this. And yes, we're not in agreement with what's happened, but I think that there are still opportunities for us to make a small difference here at a subnational level, people to people, and continuing to maintain these relationships.
And Maria, let me go back to you in Argentina. I know you spoke a bit about the business relationship, but there was something that we talked about with the Magic House. There was an interaction that the Sister City group that you head up actually took part in. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. That was a great exhibition that took place in 2019. at the Magic House. It was an exhibit about Argentina. So we as a committee took part of that previous meetings that we have with the museum. So to get to know more what they wanted to be exhibiting and also add that cultural perspective and what our thoughts were. They were very lucky to travel to Argentina and also gather information there, what they wanted to be showcasing. So they made a great exhibition where people, actually more than people, the kids were able to travel to Argentina without needing a passport. So they were able to see how the school looked like there. Of course, the landscape, there was a rock climbing referring to Los Andes. There was an area dedicated to cattle production or beef and how we eat almost every Sunday the asado, which are our barbecues. And of course, there was a corner for soccer, that we love soccer, and another corner for tango. So it was really nice to be involved with that exhibition that started here in St. Louis, but traveled around the country.
And Renee, with Saint Louis and Senegal, what's one of the, with only a little bit left, what's one of the relationships that's new, that's cultural, that you've had an interaction with St. Louis here in Missouri?
Well, I would say that something that is always new but is ongoing is travel back and forth. We take people from St. Louis and really around the country back to Saint Louis and back to Dakar. Nothing is more important and really speaks to sister cities than being in the country and experiencing the culture.
I'd like to thank all of our guests today. Tim Nowak, the Executive Director of the World Trade Center in St. Louis. Maria de Gregorio, the Chair of the St. Louis Rosario Argentina Sister Cities Committee. And Renee Brummel-Franklin, Chair of the St. Louis Saint Louis Senegal Sister Cities Committee. Thank you to all three of you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Ron.
This episode was produced by executive producer Alex Hoyer.
With audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.